First layer. The first layer of the Abyss might look like the training wheels zone, but it's still a serious threat if you're not careful. Ascending from this layer brings on mild dizziness and nausea. Nothing too wild, but enough to mess with your balance and focus. Delvers like Nat have been shown throwing up and getting headaches just from the return trip to Orth. It's your first taste of the Abyss, reminding you that there are no freebies here. The edge of the Abyss may be shallow, but it's crawling with things that can kill you in awful ways. One of the worst deaths you could face is getting paralyzed by a Silkfangs venom and left lying helpless in its territory, alive but unable to move while it slowly starts feeding. Another bad way to go? Accidentally wandering near a Hammerbeak nest and getting your skull cracked open by a bird that doesn't really appreciate unexpected visitors. Even falling and breaking a leg out here could be a death sentence if you're alone, since predators have no problem turning an injured delver into dinner. Now, surviving this layer is definitely possible with a little bit of planning. First off, managing the curse is pretty straightforward here. Anti-nausea meds can help with the dizziness, and staying hydrated is a must, especially if you've been puking. Don't push yourself too hard on the way up, and always take your time with ascents. When it comes to the creatures, pay attention to your surroundings. Silkfangs usually claim very clean circular patches of terrain about 10 meters wide. If the ground looks suspiciously neat, steer clear. Their feelers are nearly invisible, but some light-based tools or reflective gear can help spot them. The artifact Sunsphere could come in handy here. It could help you blind predators, scout dark terrain, and spot hard-to-see danger zones. But if you're carrying anything shiny, hide it when the Hammerbeaks are around, since they're aggressive and love shiny stuff. Spotting and avoiding their nest is key. Food-wise, demon fish are a solid option. They're not hard to catch if you know what you're doing, and they're edible. Having a basic fishing kit or some improvised tools can make a huge difference. Lastly, treat this layer as a learning ground. It's the safest part of the Abyss, but only by comparison. Travel in groups, move carefully, and always plan your exit strategy before you go in. A smooth return trip is just as important as the descent. Second layer. The second layer of the Abyss is where things start to get brutal. Ascending from here hits your body a lot harder. Intense nausea, splitting headaches, and numbness in your arms and legs. That numbness can make climbing or defending yourself nearly impossible. In some cases, like what happened to Rico when she was caught by a corpse weeper in this layer, the strain can knock you out cold mid-ascent. And that's how people died down here. Not because they gave up, but because their bodies just shut down. Worst ways to die in this layer? Getting snatched by a corpse weeper is high on the list. These massive birds mimic the screams of the injured to lure people in, then swoop down, grab them, and use their muscular tongues to rip flesh off of bones. They don't even have beaks, it's all muscle and brutality. Another nightmare scenario is getting cornered by a group of Inbyos. These creepy tree-dwelling primates have a strategic way of chasing their targets. One distracts, the other flanks, and before you know it, you're surrounded. Then there are the Autobots, giant silent amphibians that hang out near the water. If you get too close, they can swallow you whole in seconds. And if you start seeing Urikuri fly around, that's usually a sign that something already died nearby. Maybe something big. And you're probably next on the menu. Surviving here takes a little more than just luck. First off, managing the curse is serious business now. You'll need strong anti-nausea and pain meds, and you should assume that someone in your group might black out during the climb. That means having your climbing gear that supports unconscious bodies, like harnesses with counterweights or pulley systems. Gloves with enhanced grips are always useful since your hands might go numb. To avoid the creatures, silence is everything. Corpse weepers are drawn to noise, especially cries and shouting. Traveling quietly and using nonverbal communication is a must. Now, this might be where the artifact Wonder Wordless comes into play. If it really cancels sound when eaten, it could hide you from sound-sensitive predators like corpse weepers. Stay clear of tree zones filled with thrown debris or signs of movement, because that's usually Inbyo territory. If you're near water, assume there's an Autobot watching. And if you see scavengers like Urikuri circling overhead, treat it like a red alert. Something just died and it could be you next. There are some helpful artifacts out there too. Aside from sound dampening relics, vision enhancing tools can also help you spot tree-bound threats before you're too close. As for general survival tips, make sure at least one person in your party is guaranteed to stay conscious during ascent, no matter what. Establish safe zones or rest points along your path before heading deeper. and always learn the signs that mark different creatures' territories. If it looks off, smells weird, or just feels wrong, it probably is. Trust your instincts, and don't take chances. Third layer. The third layer is where the abyss starts messing with your head. You're still dealing with the physical strain, nausea, headaches, numb limbs, but now it adds vertigo, full-on hallucinations, and a broken sense of balance. Climbing back up from here can make your brain think you're seeing people who aren't there, hearing things that don't exist, and losing all sense of direction. Riko experienced this firsthand. During her ascent through the Great Fault, the curse slammed into her hard. She vomited, passed out, and started hallucinating. She saw people from her past, friends, mentors, even visions of returning home with her mother. They were vivid, emotional, and completely removed her from reality. In that state, it's almost impossible to make good decisions, especially while climbing. This is the layer that doesn't just break your body, it messes with your mind. There are plenty of ways to die in the third layer. Falling is the big one. The Great Fault is a massive vertical drop, and hallucinations combined with vertigo make it dangerously easy to misstep. One wrong move, and you're tumbling to your death. Then there's the Crimson Splitjaw. Giant red serpent beasts that shoot through cliff walls like living missiles. They don't care if you're resting, climbing, or just trying to breathe. They'll attack on sight. Another horrifying death comes courtesy of the Amakagame. These fleshy stomach-like traps stick to cave walls and release fruity scent to lure prey. If you follow your nose and get too close, they'll open up and swallow you whole. You don't even have time to scream. Now, surviving this layer means prepping for both mental and physical chaos. To fight off hallucinations, strong psychotropic meds can help, but they're not always reliable. Delvers also use restraints and climbing tethers to stay secured when vertigo kicks in. Since your senses can't be trusted, traveling in teams of at least 3 is ideal. 2 can keep one grounded when things get bad. Having someone always alert and ready to step in can save lives. Avoiding the creatures is all about awareness and early detection. Crimson Splitjaws have a distinct scarlet color, so learn to recognize that from afar. If you smell something sweet but don't see any fruit around, assume that it's an Amakagame, and back off. The scent of decay is another red flag. It usually means a Madoka Jack nest is nearby, and those things are nothing you want to deal with. You can harvest Neratantan plants for food, but just know they might attract hungry predators, so do it quickly and quietly. Artifacts can seriously improve your odds here. Mind-stabilizing relics could reduce hallucinations, or at least help keep you calm. Though speculative, the artifact Forgetter could really mess with your own memory to block trauma. Then, it could be used to help resist hallucinations too. Some advanced delvers use force field detectors, such as the artifact Rocktop, that attracts to external forces, which is great for detecting movement or potential threats. The artifact Fogweave could also serve as a visual aid for predicting the curse's behavior or testing cursed zones. And while extremely rare, any relics that can mess with the force field or lessen the curse's effects would be invaluable for returning safely. Artifacts or tools that can facilitate climbing even during vertigo or unconscious episodes are must-haves in this vertical depth trap. In general, falling is your biggest threat, so always stay anchored. Use multiple secure points whenever you rest or set up camp. And no matter what your senses tell you during the ascent, don't trust them blindly, as this layer is designed to deceive you. Stick to your plan, rely on your teammates, and don't let the abyss get into your head.
And really quick, if you enjoy these no-nonsense, straight-to-the-point videos covering all sorts of anime topics, then make sure to like this video and subscribe. But anyway.
4th layer. The curse in the 4th layer is painful, and it could straight up kill you if you're not ready. Ascending from this layer triggers intense body-wide pain and causes you to bleed from every orifice. That includes your eyes, nose, ears, mouth, everything. It's brutal, and if you're already injured or weak, the odds of surviving are slim. We saw exactly how bad it can get when Riko tried to ascend after being pierced by an Orb Piercer. The curse hit her with full force. She was bleeding, delirious, hallucinating from the 3rd layer's lingering effects, and barely hanging on. She could have died right there and then, had Nanachi not arrived to save her. The environment isn't any more forgiving. The Goblets of Giants might look beautiful, but they're crawling with killers. The Orb Piercer is one of the most feared predators in the Abyss. It's a porcupine-shaped beast covered in venom-coated spines, sharp enough to shred through metal. Even though it's technically a herbivore, it's taken out more delvers than most actual carnivores. What makes it even worse is its ability to sense the force field. This means it can react before you even move, dodging or attacking like it's reading your mind. Then there are the amaranthine deceptors. These things originally came from the 6th layer, but now they started showing up in the Garden of Flowers of Resilience. Their wings perfectly mimic eternal fortune flowers, so spotting them is nearly impossible. If they sting you, they inject larvae that slowly eat you alive from the inside. Then you're basically turned into a walking lunchbox for their babies. Some of the worst ways to die here include bleeding out mid-ascent while hallucinating, being impaled by a dozen Orb Piercer quills while you're paralyzed by pain, or getting stung by a deceptor and walking around for days while its larvae quietly consumes your organs. If you're going to survive this layer, preparation is everything. Painkillers and coagulants need to be in your pack at all times. The bleeding can be so severe that you'll need pressure bandages ready to go, and in some cases, even portable oxygen to support if blood starts choking your airways. This is where you'll need the artifact Mermaid Burp that releases fishy yet breathable gas. You can't afford to panic or move too fast. Staying calm and slow is your best bet for avoiding detection. Avoiding the predators here is a matter of knowing their habits. Don't go near areas where Orb Piercers are active, usually around dense flat creepers, and absolutely double check any flowers before approaching them. If it looks like an eternal fortune flower but feels off, don't risk it. Move slowly and carefully. Sudden movements might trigger an attack response in force field sensitive creatures. Anything that reduces bleeding or dulls pain can be life-saving. If you can get your hands on a force field detector such as a rock top or fog weave, it might just give you enough of an edge to escape cursed zones. If you're lucky, this could lead you to Nanachi's hideout, where subsequent effects of the curse are not present. Vision enhancing tools, or the artifact Ghost Seek, could also help in spotting camouflage threats like the Deceptors. Only highly experienced delvers, black whistles or higher, should even think about entering this layer. Plan your routes in advance and mark out escape paths. Some predators might be less active during the Abyss's night cycles, so timing your travel carefully could reduce your risk. And as always, never go alone. Even with a solid plan, the 4th layer is the kind of place where one mistake can turn deadly in seconds. 5th layer. The 5th layer, also known as the Sea of Corpses, is where your brain starts to betray you. The Curse of the Abyss here doesn't just mess you up physically, but it scrambles your entire nervous system. When you try to ascend from this layer, you're hit with full-on sensory shutdown. No sight, no hearing, no balance, and zero awareness of your own body. Confusion sets in hard, and worse, people often end up hurting themselves without realizing it. During Riko's ascent, she lost all sense of self. She couldn't hear her own voice, had no idea where her limbs were, and only realized she had injured her hand, cheek, or even cracked a tooth after it was all over. Nanachi, a blessed Nerahate, managed to stay conscious while climbing through this layer, but even she was bleeding from the strain. Preshka took heavy damage from this curse, mentally and physically. Most of her memories were wiped, and her sense of self got scrambled. She only managed to find her way around later by using Manya's scent as a guide. This layer is also home to the horrifying Stingerheads, massive armored nightmares that look like scorpions on steroids. They stand over 2 meters tall and have 7 venom-filled tails. Their venom doesn't just kill, it liquefies organs from the inside, and then they slurp up what's left. They travel in coordinated groups and tend to claim areas marked by a burnt vomit stench and pale acid-damaged sandstone. If you smell something awful and see weird bleached rock, turn around. And then of course there's Bondrewd. This layer is his domain. He resides at Ido Front, the massive fortress near the bottom, which serves as his home and his lab. If you get caught by him or his umber hands, death might be the kindest option. Bondrewd is infamous for his twisted experiments on humans, especially children. He's obsessed with the curse and how to survive it, and that curiosity has led to some of the most inhumane experiments imaginable. If you're captured, he'll shove you into an elevator leading to the 6th layer, where you'll get hit by the curse and transform into a Nerahate. You'll end up as a mindless amorphous blob of flesh. You'll be dissected mentally and physically in the name of progress, and when you've already served your purpose, he'll dump you in the miniature Garden of Dawn on the 6th layer. Even if you escape the wildlife and terrain of the 5th layer, falling into his hands could mean dying as a human and being reborn as something entirely different. Now for how you might not die horribly here, surviving the curse starts with preparation. Sensory deprivation training before diving in is a must. You'll need restraint systems, anything to stop you from accidentally hurting yourself during ascent. The buddy system isn't optional here. One person needs to physically guide the other, especially if the curse hits mid-ascent. You should also practice alternative navigation methods. Prushka managed by using smell, so developing scent-based cues could actually be life-saving. Creature avoidance comes down to awareness. If the air smells like scorched puke and the ground looks strangely pale, you're probably near a Stingerhead nest and you need to leave immediately. If you're crossing water, be careful of the Hamashirama. They released a paralytic mucus that leaves you completely defenseless. Getting paralyzed in a place like this is basically a death sentence. As for helpful relics though, artifacts that can preserve your senses during ascent would be gold here, and scent-based navigation tools, similar to what Prush could use, should absolutely be standard issue for any delver in this layer. The 5th layer is realistically the ceiling for most human delvers. It's only 1,000 meters tall, so technically it doesn't take long to get through, but the ascent can wreck you in under a minute if you're not careful. Setting up base camps right at the border with the 5th layer gives you a place to recover before pushing deeper. Every decision here needs to be made with the understanding that one wrong step could leave you blind, confused, and helpless, in a place filled with acid-barfing bug monsters. And do not forget that you're also under the watchful eye of Bondrewd. If you're not extremely careful, your journey might end in a lab cage, with no name, no memories, and no way back. So yeah, move slow, plan hard, and don't skimp out on the gear. 6th layer. Welcome to the 6th layer, the capital of the unreturned, where the name is not just for show. This is the point where the Abyss flips the switch from survival horror to body horror RPG you can't quit. Ascending from this depth changes you forever, and we're not even talking about physical pains and mental torture. It's something even worse. The curse here causes total loss of humanity as you transform into a completely different being called a Neurohate, or hollow. That means losing your intellect, your personality, and your body too. In many cases, you don't make it out alive at all. Bondrewd's experiments are the most infamous proof of this. The kids he used in his twisted experiments were all exposed to this layer's curse. This resulted to mutated bodies, broken minds, and lives reduced to a biological nightmare. They were ultimately abandoned in the miniature Garden of Dawn located within the 6th layer beneath the base of Idle Front. Voiko's death later on drives home how unforgiving this layer is. Even she didn't ascend the full way, just partial exposure after the village of Uruburu's barrier collapsed, causing her to melt physically until her entire body disintegrates. There's no partial survival here. You're either transformed or you're gone. The layer itself is packed with monsters that make even White Whistle sweat. The Terminid dragons are basically living death machines. They're the size of dinosaurs, move like they don't even notice the curse, and come with explosive venom, acid spit, and armored scales that detonate when hit. If one spots you, you won't be fighting back. You'll be dealing with a corpse cleanup. And then there's the nightmare that is pseudo water. Looks like perfectly clean drinking water until you drink it. The symptoms kick in: extreme diarrhea, flesh melting off, body hardening into something resembling lead, and finally, you become a disgusting egg sac for whatever horror was hiding in the water. There are several ways to die in this layer: drinking pseudo water and slowly turning into a statue while your organs hatch eggs, getting caught in a blast radius of a Terminid dragon's venom explosion, trying to ascend and ending up as a mindless Neurohate blob who forgets what it means to be human, getting grabbed by something above you like a Ura no Guapu, and never seeing your killer. Now, choose your poison. So, I guess the question is, how do you not immediately die here? First off, don't even think about ascending, unless you're inside a zone that blocks the force field, like the village of Uruburu. The curse is non-negotiable. You can't brute force your way through it. If you're forced to ascend, your only real hope is to either become a Neurohate or using some artifact that rewrites the rules of biology, like the Cradle of Desire. Otherwise, you're toast. Traveling with someone who's already survived transformation, like a Neurohate guide, might give you an edge, but even then that's a long shot. Creature survival means staying paranoid. Turbinate dragons should be avoided completely. They don't play by the rules, and even the strongest delvers tend to just sneak around them. Only drink from running water, because pseudo-water likes to settle in still pools. If you happen to own the artifact Nil Fount, then you don't have to worry about falling victim to the pseudo-water. This relic generates clean drinking water, which could literally save lives, especially in a layer where water source is also scarce. And stay alert above you. Creatures like the Uranagwampu stick to ceilings, waiting for prey to wander below. If you can get your hands on a Dread Owl's essence, use it for stealth. It's one of the few ways to mask your presence. In terms of gear, artifacts are the only real lifeline. The Cradle of Desire is the big one. It somehow grants Uruburu's ability to resist force fields as long as you're within its barrier. With this kind of protection, it could buy you time, or even let you travel a bit more safely. Bondrewd's human experiments at Idlefront were all about pushing past the Curse of the Abyss at this level. He created the cartridge system, which in its simplest and most horrifying terms, involves stuffing a living child into a container. That cartridge is then used to absorb the full force of the curse during ascension, transferring what would normally happen to the user until the helpless victim inside. The person using the cartridge doesn't just avoid the curse, they gain what's called the blessing, which allows them to move between layers with barely any consequence. Bondrewd himself uses these to ridiculous effect, surviving multiple ascents and deaths without missing a beat. But let's be clear, this is extremely inhumane. The process only works if the person inside the cartridge has deep emotional bond with the user. Bondrewd abused that connection to its full extent by sacrificing child after child. So while it is technically a method to survive the 6th layer, it's a moral black hole and not something that anyone should rely on. Finally, long-term survival down here usually means staying put. Most humans don't come back from the 6th layer. Some choose to make permanent settlements, like the Ganja crew who later founded the village of Uruburu. It might be weird, it might be full of transformed beings, but it's still one of the safest places down here. If you're not part of a plan involving mythical artifacts or unholy resilience, your best bet is to find shelter, stay quiet, and never, ever let your guard down. This is the point of no return, and if you're not ready to give up your humanity, you probably shouldn't be here at all. 7th layer. We now descend into the 7th layer, the bottom of the abyss as we currently know it. This is where the unknown gets downright deadly. The curse here is pretty much a complete mystery. The general belief is that trying to ascend from this point means instant death, but nobody can actually prove it. There's only one case where some written info about this curse supposedly made it all the way back to Orth 250 years ago. Unfortunately, the document was lost before anyone could analyze it. But honestly, even if the curse doesn't kill you, the layer itself is a nightmare. When Rico's team arrived here during the joint expedition with Srajo's Hell Hex, they got ambushed by a creature called the Mysterious Beast. It's a massive flying blob with jagged toothed tentacles and the ability to bend the force field like it's nothing. It floats around freely, unaffected by the Curse of the Abyss, and worse, it can completely mess with your senses. It hijacks your perception of the force field, making you see and feel things that aren't there. On top of that, it regenerates fast, so even if you manage to hurt it, it just shrugs it off. And that's not the only thing lurking down here. There's the Sakawatari, a gigantic bird with a glowing green body that could span about 50 meters. It usually appears near the surface, but is believed to actually nest down in this layer. Thanks to a special membrane in its body, it can ride the force field like a highway and ignore the curse entirely. That kind of biological cheat code might be the key to understanding how to survive in this place. But the worst ways to die in the 7th layer? Getting swallowed alive by the mysterious beast while completely disoriented. Being shredded by illusions. Running into a cliff thinking you're safe. Accidentally climbing up and triggering a curse effect that we still don't understand. Or becoming lunch for a force field skating sky dinosaur that mistakes you for a snack. Let's be honest. Survival here is like trying to win a game where you don't know the rules. Since we don't even have solid data on the curse, we're working off of pure guesswork. First off, studying the biology of beings that are immune to the force field like a Sakawatari might offer some answers. If we can figure out how they bypass the curse, maybe we can replicate it through gear, artifacts, or even biotech. For avoiding predators like the mysterious beast, your usual tricks won't cut it. Its sense-scrambling powers render sight, sound, and even your ability to feel the force field basically useless. Survival itself might depend on developing completely new ways of perception. This could include signal-based tools, echolocation systems, scent tracking, or even neural implants that don't rely on the force field at all. Anything that gives you a chance to react before it's too late. But if you're really left with no other options but to face the mysterious beast, you can have a higher chance of beating it if you possess the artifacts Unheard Bell and Sparagmos. If the former can freeze time, it could give you the opportunity to stop its attack and break free from its warp perception tricks. With time paused, you can hit the creature with Sparagmos, which has been proven to permanently destroy even the immortal and those who can regenerate from injuries. Now when it comes to tools, undiscovered artifacts from the bottom of the abyss might be the only real hope. You'll need something that can block, reshape, or nullify the force field entirely, and that tech doesn't exist yet. Biological transformation, like what happened to the Narahate, might end up being the only way to truly function here long term, but obviously that comes at a massive cost. Realistically, any dive into this layer should be treated as one way. You're not coming back. So the focus should shift to exploration and communication. If you can send data or signals back up before you die, or evolve into something else, then that's a mission win. Setting up a permanent stable base might be smarter than constantly moving, and isolation protocols should be airtight, especially if you're dealing with unknown infections, parasites, or mutations. So yeah, if you're planning on heading to the 7th layer, pack light, bring something to record your last words, and accept that survival might not mean staying human.